listening to The Starting Zone, a podcast about World of Warcraft and the people who play it. And now, here are your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to The Starting Zone, the podcast about World of Warcraft, the people who play it. Today is October 5th, 2025, and my name is Spencer Downey. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to the podcast. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Jason Lucas. Jason, how are you doing on this fine Sunday?
Spencer, hello. I'm doing great. This has been one of the weirdest weeks, I think, ever trying to put this show together.
Yep.
I guess is a way to put it. There's just been, since we last spoke, there has been so much info about, expansion stuff, and also new, stuff coming before expansion even gets here, and alpha launching and all this stuff. I, at one point in time, today's notes doc for the show was up over 130 pages.
Yeah.
Obviously I significantly trimmed it down, and then we've trimmed it down further. But like once I pasted in the alpha build notes and everything with all the class changes that are coming in midnight, it was just staggering. I feel like this is a little too much all at once. Considering that we have a patch coming out Tuesday for the live game that adds a huge new limited time mode to play, and also like pretty significant changes for gearing and character power, even if there's not a lot of other content. But so that, like, alongside alpha and like everything, like all the ups and downs of alpha launch this week, it's good for WoW to be vibrant and have stuff going on and stuff that you want to do and talk about, but man, this is a lot all at once.
It's been really staggering. I'm with you, because it's not just, hey, here's the new content that's coming out, or here's the sneak peek at the new class, or hey, housing is coming out, here's a housing thing. It's also like, hey, we're doing there's going to be a stat squish, and there's going to be a revolutionary new way to heal, and there's going to be a revolutionary new changes to the amount of classes with large button pruning, as well as just responsibility changes. And like there's UI and add-on people out there, we're blowing things up, FYI, and you're gonna have to adjust to that and what that's going to look like for the community. And there was response to all of that, and then there was response to the response to all of that. Like all of that happened in this past week, and I expect over the next 2 months, we're going to see a lot of that back and forth conversation happen about a lot of these topics as people give more feedback, as well as they just get, essentially exposed to more phases of alpha and more content in alpha with it happening. So today's episode is not everything. We're not, like I said, we're not going to do a 14-hour episode today. We're not going to do some sort of crazy marathon stream thing. It is going to be probably in the realm of one of our normal episodes. We trim some stuff back. We set some stuff on a shelf to discuss a little bit later. There are topics we're going to touch on this week that are obviously really important for people, but it's the upfront of the show is what's going on this week in World of Warcraft, what's happening with this new content drop that's going on, to make sure people are aware of, the timelines and stuff with that fresh reminder. And then dipping our toes / sloshing through some of what happened in alpha and what's going on in alpha for folks. So that's an expectation setter. And, next week, obviously, we'll have even more to cover. Like I've definitely taken 3 or 4 topics from the notes that have happened and been like, well, this is an hour and a half conversation, and that's an hour and a half conversation, and that's an hour and a half conversation, and been like, okay, let's save these and see where this goes so we can have a bit more of a conversation about those. And who knows, we'll see how stuff progresses. But yeah, it's been a heck of a week in WoW for news. And as you said, the show notes could have been a short story pretty easily if we wanted them to be, and we don't. We want them to be our normal podcast, so we got to trim stuff down a little bit, and we'll break it out over the next couple of weeks.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure it's going to be flowing as we get new alpha builds on a regular basis and everything else. But yeah, I mean, obviously the bent of the show for years now is always like, what's going on in the game this week? What can you do? What should you be doing? What's cool to pay attention to, or fun, or maybe not worth paying attention to? And we're going to try to keep it at that level. And then like the biggest headlines from this week's stuff. I have a feeling that the news weeks will be a bit slower than this week going forward. And yeah, like obviously the biggest topic of the day around the game right now is the add-on API functionality and all the changes getting made with that. This is a quagmire and a developing situation, and we are not going to cover the controversies surrounding it. We will get into a bit of a discussion about what has changed so far and kind of the current outlook, but yeah, we're going to recap the swirling drama around I don't know, add-on or class streamlining doomerism or whatever. It's not what we do here, and I don't really want to talk about that because there's much more interesting and exciting stuff I think to get into this week.
Yeah, and I will openly talk about how important add-ons are to the game and important to accessibility and important to all those things. Like, I fully register that is where this conversation is coming from, and that's where a lot of that passion is coming from. It's just so early in the process that we'll talk about where we're at now and why we think we're at that point at this stage. But yeah, we're not gonna get into a 2-hour conversation about add-ons and the importance of add-ons, what's happening with add-ons. We will save some of that for another week when there's less amazing news happening and other stuff to sort of cover inside that situation. And if it is a situation where it's slow enough, who knows, maybe we bring in some people and have an overall add-on conversation. Who knows? We'll see what ends up happening with that. All right. But this past week in World of Warcraft, okay, so I was out for Raid because we were extending. So I did some Mythic Plus and had some fun doing that on Sunday, Monday night. And our Raid team progressed on Nexus King to where'd they get to? I think about 24% in the last phase, which is pretty great. So that's like equivalent. That's like, hey, we're getting 10% wipes is what that kind of is, right? So I would say that we're close. Like this week we'd be expecting a kill. We are in that weird time period where people start vanishing for little periods of time. And so having the same consistent group's really hard. And it's a fight where consistency is very important because you have to make it cleanly through phase 1 to get to the intermission, and the intermission goes much smoother with everyone alive. And then when you get to the last phase, having people who have actually done the star killer things with bouncing the stars around is important, and know where they need to run with things to drop them, and like all that's really important. So every time you bring in new people, there's a learning setback that can happen. So it's trying to mitigate that as best as possible. So I do know that tonight I am expected to be in. And I think I'm in healing, or I was in DPSing the last time I was in. And that is because one of our healers is expected to be out. And so it's one of those like, okay, I'm coming in. I'm now 170 pulls behind the rest of the group on this boss. So I need to be sure that I'm as prepared as possible to reduce the amount that I'm causing problems to and setbacks for the raid team. So that's the onus that's on me coming into that position for the one night. And clearly if it doesn't happen to die tonight, which I hope it does because it'd be great to be in there for the kill, then tomorrow night when that person's back, hopefully that falls over then and we can start working on Dimensius and getting that all happening, because then we move towards hitting farm. And obviously with Turbo Boost kicking off this week, we will see some power increases, although I expect very little power increase to happen this week. Actually, there's a power loss depending on who's still using their special belt or not, their delving belt or not. So we'll have to see how that all plays out. But on the 21st, we're expecting actual character power increases, so we'll get to see that at least. But yeah, that's been my week in WoW, was just doing some Mythic Plus on Monday, Tuesday, and then some alpha play around. I did a little bit of alpha impression there, which really was housing based for me because that's what I wanted to play around with. So the housing system is like everything that I wanted it to be so far based off what I've seen. And the fact that it has features in it that I don't find inside other builders very often, like the whole dying system is wonderful by comparison to a lot of the other building games that I have out that I've played out there. The fact that I can like put down a fireplace and then have 21 different colorations I can attach to a fireplace is not something you come across. Typically it's like, hey, here's curtains, and curtains will have 6 different choices. And here's, a carpet, and the carpet will have 7 different options. Whereas inside this case, it's No, you can like put down chairs and have chairs be 21 different colors and have tables be 21 different colors and have fireplaces be 21 different. You're like, this is great. So that's super exciting to me. So I'm thrilled with what they've been doing so far in housing. I will say, note of feedback, I was watching Josh Allen, not the football player, the Devilor lore, friend of the show. He actually went through and did the housing experience for both Alliance and Horde. I was just doing the Alliance one, and made a really good point, which was it almost looks like in the Horde zone that they weren't really happy with it when it was initially being tested at Gamescom, or maybe even before then. And so they chose to go back in and really put their stamp on each of these locations for housing. And so there's very few, I don't think there's pretty much no housing locations on the Horde, in the Horde neighborhood, that are not interesting. Like they all have like a really cool view of a bridge or a view of a waterfall, or like some really neat rock formations that sort of make them like an exciting space for you to put down your house and sort of have your house in that area. And the Alliance ones just don't have that touch. Like you can really feel a difference between them. And so he was speculating that he thinks they went back in to really spice that place up, and hopefully they go back in and do a similar thing to the Alliance one, because a lot of the plots are just really generic and don't really have great views, and there's nothing super special about them. And there's a few that are really close to each other, like really, really close to each other. You basically share that fence line kind of idea. And a lot of the fences that they sort of put in place over the plots are still very square and don't look natural at all. Like it looks like a plot. It almost looked like, one of the ways he described it, which I agree with, was like someone designed the area and then just went in with a plot stamper and then just stamped down plots where they wanted to, which then just flattened that area and everything in it to put a plot down on top of it. And it doesn't read as very interesting, and doesn't read as dynamic as the Horde spaces. So I think that's unfortunate, and I think it'd be neat if they went back in and added some spice into the Alliance, like even adding some bridges and adding some, like, I think it was even like the town center areas where a lot of the neighborhood events are going to take place. There's no housing near any of that. You actually have to travel pretty far from your neighborhood to go down to take place in those activities, whereas it feels much more centralized in the Horde one. So I think that was really good feedback that I wanted to be sure I shared here, because I definitely noticed it.
Yeah, I looked at the Alliance zone. I was surprised at how big the zone is. It's a really big, like that. I assume the Horde was similar size. Like, I mean, obviously you got 50 housing plots in each one, right? So you figure it's going to be pretty big, but yeah, like you just fly around there for quite a while. I do think the Alliance one has a lot of cool like subzones, different biomes. There's sort of one that's more like farmland. There's one that's more like Duskwood, like sort of creepy forest. There's sort of a coastal area, and there's one that's more like dwarven coated, like up in the hills. There's like a little mountain, and there's like a griffin roost and stuff, like wild griffins flying around, and that was pretty cool. I mean, obviously, there's nothing we could do with exteriors right now. That's just not in the build. But yeah, I was messing around with the interior editor, and it's pretty surprising how powerful and seamless it is to just change the layout of the interior and then snap back into the world and walk around in it, and just move a room around or like put a second floor in, and then snap in and out from the editor to gameplay. And yeah, I mean, being able to move and rotate play stuff, change its orientation, or change, if dye it, whatever, scale it up and down. I mean, it seems awesome. The stuff that you get to start off alpha with is not very much stuff. It's not tied into, like, for people who may not know, like, the alpha account is separate from your whole BNet account. It's like a different test account, so it's not going to be pulling in achievements and all this other data that it's going to use to reward decor and stuff like that. So the options that we have to start off with are pretty limited, but there's still a lot of different combos you can do and kind of get the impression of how stuff works. I like the fact you could stack stuff up and then move it around. If you move the bottom part of the stack, it all moves together. That was really cool.
Yeah, it's actually huge. There's a lot of, like, Conan Exiles, which has some after market mod stuff that people have made for it. Even inside those situations, a lot of them have not have not gotten building stuff down where if you put down a table and then you put down cutlery on the table and food and glasses and bottles and you decorate that whole table with a centerpiece and candles and that kind of stuff, when you go to move the table moves and everything else just floats in the air. It just stays floating in the air and you have to move it all individually. Like there's very few games that are like, yeah, no, you've put down a table and put stuff on that table. You can now move that whole thing where you want to put it. Even in a game like Dune Awakening, if you put down stuff on a table, then try and move the table, it won't let you move the table until you move the stuff off of the table and then move the table, is the way that theirs currently works too. And that's a very modern game that recently came out. So to have something to actually be like, yes, you put down a table and then you add stuff to it and that becomes part of the same sort of like unit that you can then move somewhere and set down, but then you can still remove the stuff individually if you want from it, is like, that's a big deal for making this fun and be able to play the game.
That's really cool because you can make some kind of elaborate props to, put on display in a corner or whatever, or wherever you want to. And also you can just straight up grab something and move it into the air if you want it to be floating. So, you don't even have to do stuff like, well, I'm going to stack this, then move the stuff out from underneath of it or whatever. Like you could just make it float. So, really, just really impressive. The feature, and this is just barely a taste of everything we're going to be able to do with it. So that was really cool. In terms of actual gameplay stuff, I didn't play that much, but I did mess around with the nameplate editor and the new built-in cooldown manager. And for the way that I play the game, which is, typically pretty add-on light, I was pretty impressed. I'm pretty happy with, this initial pass on it. And I think, with this week's patch that's coming up, we are getting many of these cooldown manager improvements into War Within. And I think I'm going to just start using it and get rid of my, buff tracking weak auras and just start getting, used to the way that looks and feels to play with. But, the plates are really customizable. They add a lot of features that are, you might see in plate add-ons and stuff, but it's just built in. It's not, it's not going to be every single thing that everybody's going to want necessarily, but I think it's a good step in the right direction. And I was using them when I was playing alpha a bit. I actually don't use a plate add-on, which might be incorrect, but I just have never liked any of the ones that I've tried. So this is a big step up for me coming from War Within baseline plates to what's available in alpha.
You're a unique case. You're a very unique case.
Yeah. The bummer is that, man, the template warrior character, like you're not copying your characters over from live, right? Like this account lives in a little box. The template, like if you make a midnight level up template character, you start off with a warrior that has 6% haste. There is no haste gear anywhere on your character. They give you a cache of gear to round out so you can play different specs or whatever. None of the stuff they give you has haste on it. So I started playing the intro questing experience where you go to Quel'Danas, I guess, is where you start. Extremely mild spoiler, I guess. But, dude, I got like a couple quests done. I got one piece of gear that had a little amount of haste on it. And then I was suddenly like at, 10 or 15% haste, but it felt so bad. I was just like, I'm not going to play any more of this right now. It was already pretty late by the time I got started on it. Plus I had a lot of issues earlier in the week with, again, it's the first week of alpha. Like this is not my first rodeo. I'm used to these kinds of problems, but like I was going to stream alpha on Thursday. I was going to just do the housing intro and like set up a house and hang out and answer questions or try stuff out. I couldn't get into servers all night. They were just showing offline, even though they were or weren't, depending on what exact point in time we were talking about. But, there was issues. There were tech issues with getting the servers stood up and keeping them online and keeping them reporting in. So I got in like for brief moments on Thursday, but I kept getting kicked out. Friday was much the same thing until much later on. But, yesterday seemed fine. So I did get to play it a bit, but not as much as I really wanted to by the time we recorded.
Yeah.
Because I don't have much of a take on like what we're actually playing, but also like I'll probably just be dinking around doing quests and maybe some delves. I don't think I'll be doing dungeons and stuff like that. I don't think that's not, I don't have kind of the time to get involved in doing that kind of stuff. Because there's so much there's things I want to do in live. Legion Remix is coming out in 2 days. I'm gonna be playing Midnight. I super appreciate being on the initial wave for alpha access, and like I will be dinking around, but I'm not gonna be I'm not living in there testing it and doing stuff, but that was my kind of initial reaction to it.
Yeah, no, I totally get that being the first impression, especially I was around for the Thursday weirdness of like, if you started making a character and you'd gotten to that character create screen, then you were fine. You could actually make a character, and despite the fact that everywhere else it looked like servers were offline, even if you clicked on realms, it would look like servers are offline, you could click play and it would log you into something. And I was like, all right, I don't know what this does. But then you're like, just don't log out, I guess. And so there's a lot of people just like, just don't log out. Like, it's just, yeah.
If it was defaulting into the character creation screen, you were fine.
You were fine.
If you had an existing character, you were not fine.
Yeah, it was a very weird system and problems they're running into. But as you said, it's alpha, and we anticipate and expect these things, so it's not too surprising that happened. But right, is there any live WoW stuff you want to chat about before we dive into this week?
Yeah, I mean, when we spoke last, I was like, man, I hope I can get a roster together for Mythic tonight. We ended up doing that last week. We had like basically a full night to pull Mythic Loom, but we never got out of phase 1, just kind of learning the dance. Because of various reasons, just signups and the attendance issues we've been having, and just sort of some overall, I don't know, sentiment on the team. I made the call like, all right, let's start with Mythic. Let's just do Mythic Tuesday, Wednesday, since we know that we're going to have bodies. Which I don't know if we're going to do every week, but that felt like the thing to try. For some reason, it took us a while to get back through Plexus Sentinel on Tuesday. That was a bad way to start the week, but we did get back through, after we did that, then, I mean, Soulbinder is a much easier boss. So it didn't really cost us too much time. Had the rest of the night for Loom and then all of Wednesday for Loom. I think by the end of Tuesday, we were finally getting some phase 2s. Wednesday, we had a 9% wipe. So we're on track. Like the core team is really locking in with the strat and the dance and communicating with each other about who needs to be doing what, which is really important on that fight. I am busy trying to line up my web beams and not kill anybody and bait things in a good spot and survive. And I don't have a lot of time or mental bandwidth to call out which team's turn it is to soak which pylon. So I kind of just encouraged everybody like, hey, use your microphone, like talk to your partner, talk to the other group. If you just went, whatever, like this is what it's for. It's a big coordination dance. We're using a weak aura pack and we're using, raid notes and all that stuff. So all the information is there for people to use. But it's still not going to play the game for you. And also, you can't control your partner's character. So, tonight we're going to raid. And what I want to do is start with Heroic Skip and just kill the last 2 bosses, get people in on mains and just blast away. And then, if people want to swap around or whatever, we can just kind of chill and clear back through Heroic. And if we have any time left, then, maybe we can get some more Lumathor pulls in. Next week, it's going to be the thing of, well, we're in line for another 3% damage and healing with the Renown. So do we clear first or do we clear up until we have our new rep rank and then go back and do Loom and then clean up Heroic later? So that'll be a conversation for, tomorrow or Tuesday. But feeling good. I mean, Raid's been feeling a little bit bad just because we've been stuck, but we really needed that big win. Even without the kill, I think it was a big morale boost to see like, hey, the process actually works. Like, keep pulling the boss, keep tackling the problem, communicate with each other, and like we will kill bosses. They're just not going to kill themselves if we don't log on and pull them. In terms of dungeons for the week, I got all my dungeons done by Wednesday, which is a lot of dungeons to slam in, but there's some long WoW nights. But it feels good to get it done early because I don't have to think about it. I'm up to 3047 rating, which again, I'm not pushing rating at this point, but just knocking 13s down as they come up. I only need streets now and I'll have 13 Resil, and then I'll just be doing 12s the whole rest of the season. Just let me get to 13 Resil and then stop doing them. Got all my delves done by like Friday on the Monk and Druid. I decided to hang up the Demon Hunter for now because it's just too much. I'll pick the Demon Hunter back up when other stuff cycles out, but it was with alpha and with everything else. It was just doing 3 alts through a full slate of delves and key acquisition is way too much. But the Monk and Druid are both pretty close to full hero track, even if stats aren't great. So that's good. And then Brewfest. I mean, that was the other thing, was Brewfest was keeping me super busy up through like Thursday, because I did the thing I said I didn't want to do, which was get multiple tunes going, do dailies, do the intro quest, do the one-time quest. Because once I got rolling, I'm like, all right, this is actually doable if I do 2 tunes. And I'm like, well, if I do 3 or 4 tunes, then I could do it in like a week. So I got it all done. I got my 3250 or 3200 toke, whatever it is. So I got all the new stuff for 2025 from the vendors. I had gotten all the stuff from the bags from the hourly event, except for the two-hander, the Dark Iron two-hander. Xander in our Discord pointed out that, hey, this stuff doesn't bind, so you can buy and sell it on the auction house. So I just bought myself the two-hander. I sold the extra Dark Iron items I was getting to recoup some coin. And then before we started recording this morning, I queued up a Corrin. I got the Brewfest Bomber.
Nice.
So, which was super good luck. So that's it. All done with Brewfest for this year.
Congratulations, dude.
I'm not gonna do anything else. Thank you. It feels nice to be done, like, basically. I mean, I was basically done an entire week in advance of the event ending, and then it's like, all right, just do Corrin every day. If I get the mount, cool. If not, see you next year. So
yeah,
I mean, I really like what they did with Brewfest, and I think there's a lot of great stuff out there to get from the event. My sort of weirdo completionist holiday thing tends to kick in with the big holidays, and it's like, all right, I'm just going to spend a couple hours a day slamming this stuff until it's done. And that's what I did.
Yeah, no, I mean, good on you. It's a lot of work. I have not put in that effort on that many characters. I've been doing Corrin and some things here and there, and just sort of cherry picking the rewards I really kind of want, and being like, there'll be more next year, and there's going to be housing stuff next year and a bunch of stuff. So I'm sure it'll be, I'll be in a backlog, and I might be in a backlog for a bit, but I'm happy with where my brain is at the moment as far as time committed to WoW. And I think it's important to take note of, hey, you know what, if you don't want to go hard for a year, just don't go hard for a year. It's fine. You'll catch up. It'll be okay. As long as you have a good stall of alts, you can certainly do anything in a year. Because if you're running 50 characters through Brewfest, I guarantee you can get every single reward that's ever existed if you were doing something like that.
Yeah, and I've hit those years where I'm like, I'm just not doing this, and then I get behind, and then it's like, all right, this is the year I got to catch up, and then it gets even more intense than 3 or 4 characters. But yeah, I mean, Brewfest is decent, at least in the fact that there's a ton of tokens front loaded and up front from the intro quests and the annual quests. Yeah. So and now the bar tab barrels, the trick or treating, essentially. You just get a ton on a character, and then warband them into your bank and stack them all up, and off you go. So, yeah, it was very intimidating at first, but it worked out pretty well. I'm happy with it. I don't feel like I devoted too much time to it, and I still had plenty of room to breathe.
Right. Yeah. All right. With that, let's hop into what's going on this week in World of Warcraft. All right, this week is the World Quest bonus event, which means the Sign of the Emissary buff is up, increasing reputation gains from World Quests by 50%, as well as a quest to complete 10 World Quests, which rewards 2,500 rep to the major faction of your choice. This is a great week for folks that are looking to catch up on Renown stuff, or finish off getting their Augment Rune, their Infinite Augment Rune, or whatever it is they're trying to do. It's a great week for that, to dive in and take advantage, so be sure you're taking advantage of the World Quest bonus event while you can. On top of that,
I think usually they double this up with another event, I feel like.
Yeah.
But I think this time they were like, hey, what are we going to put with World Quest bonus event? They're like, oh, Remix comes out that day. Forget it.
Yeah. As top of that, we have the Titan Disc fragments happening, which means that we previously had to choose one week, which means if you chose, like, I want to complete 6 World Quests, then hey, this kind of doubles up for you, because that would be the previous week. So keep that in mind, because we're on a Titan Disc fragment week. You may have been able to actually double up stuff. So maybe you have an alt you haven't logged into yet, or you haven't really played in a little bit. You can hop in, pick up those quests outside of the inn in Dornegal, and be able to double up on some of these rewards this week with that World Quest bonus event that's going on. The Titan Disc fragments, yep, you do collect 100 of these. You can get them from rares, treasures, dungeons, and delves. Delves are kind of the fastest and easiest way to get them, and obviously if you're someone who hasn't done your delves weekly for Bran, which you'd still have access to because it's on a 3-week rotation. You could potentially complete that Delves Weekly for Bran while getting your Titanus fragments and get your reward as far as that goes as well. The PvP brawl for the week is Gravity Lapse. That is a modified Eye of the Storm where gravity turns off once a minute, and you have to be sure you're getting safe because that big old meteor that's flying through space that is the Eye of the Storm, it sort of moves around a bit. So you got to be sure you're not, falling into space. You're falling onto ground. And you can have some fun knocking some people back and pushing them away as the gravity's turning back on. This is one of the original brawls that came out. And there's a quest to win one of them, which gets you the Marks of Honor, Conquest and Honor as a reward called Something Different. And yeah, if you wanted to try it out, feel free. This is, to me, one of my least interesting brawls. It's also one of my least favorite battlegrounds, even though it's actually not a bad battleground. It's kind of like in my... It's the upper area of my least favorites. There's like 3 or 4 below, or 2 or 3 below this. This one's okay. And yeah, so you want to check it out, feel free to check out Eye of the Storm.
Yeah, I agree with you basically. It's like the gimmick was funny the first time you ever saw it, and it got old so fast, right? the gravity turn. You're like, oh wow, look at that, lol. Everybody's up in the sky. Yep. Oh, this just keeps happening.
Every minute.
And then 12 weeks later, it was like, oh, that thing's back. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's fine, I guess. Eye of the Storm was never one of my favorites either, but that's what's in the rotation this week if it works and the game doesn't put you into some other brawl. But
yeah.
So just expect that one.
And world boss wise, we have Reshinor, the big old dragon that flies through untethered space, dropping 688 eye level warbound loot. So if you want to be sure you're taking care of that, just get out into the erratic rifts and knock out this this big old dragon. And yeah, it does still phase and fly back and forth between areas, so it will take you a little bit to do, but it's worthwhile doing to get that piece of 688 warbound for sure. Mythic Plus affixes for the week are Pulsar, Tyrannical, and Fortified. So if you are someone who is looking to get into doing some 1s through 10s, well actually 1s through 11s, you'll be experiencing Pulsar, which is where these crystals spawn around players, these spinning orbs, and you have to run over and collect your buddy's orbs. So you have to... I actually kind of enjoy the pattern movement of figuring out where your orb's rotating based off where you're moving and where your friend is, and trying to make the orb smack into your friend. That to me, I actually kind of enjoy that gamification of it. But if you do this properly, then you get yourself some mastery and leech buffs, and if you fail to get them, then obviously you make the mobs take reduced damage and deal increased damage. So you do want to be sure you're actually like collecting these orbs. It is important to do. It will help out your group quite a bit, so be sure you're taking advantage of that while you can.
Yeah, I think this is going to be the rotation this week, but I'm not really sure because I feel like weeks 7 and 8 got a little messy, and now we should be back around to the top, but then we're not, because if we're going off of what it was last week, then it should be this. I don't know. I think it's going to be this one, but if not, then we'll just have to reassess. Some weird stuff has happened already this season in terms of what I thought was going to come up. So overall, yeah, I mean, this is a great affix, especially considering the one that it replaced where the 10 orbs would spawn in from the edges of the arena and then come in. It's pretty simple to deal with. And yeah, there's definitely some... I don't know. Is it too generous to call it skill expression? But like just setting up in a good place for your teammates to be able to grab the orb from you it makes you just feel good when you're like, ooh, I'm going to just angle this over here. Then this person's going to be able to get it. No problem. Awesome. We're getting the buff. Yeah, it's probably like, it's one of the simpler ones to deal with. I don't know if it's the simplest one to deal with. The kill ad one might be the simplest to deal with. We're killing stuff in the dungeon anyway. But yeah, it's... when this came in season 2, it was such a breath of fresh air from what we were dealing with at that spot in the rotation. So it should be a low level tyrannical week, which is, that can make, if you're trying to work your way up the ladder, that can make it a little bit more complicated because you are going to have to do bosses for longer and they're going to hit you harder. So you got to know how to do them better. But I really don't think we're in such a different world. I think we were talking about this last week or maybe the week before. Like, the FXs just don't really have that big of an impact week to week the way that they used to, where it just greatly changed the complexion of a dungeon run. Pulsar certainly does not do that. So, it's I think that means that it's like a good FX for the purposes where we currently find them. You don't want something that you're sort of paying more attention to than what's happening in the dungeon itself.
Yeah. Brewfest is, as we just talked about the show, is still running and is going to end in 4 days. So you have until Thursday. That is October 9th to finish off Brewfest, getting all the extra rewards, getting all the new stuff that's out there. There's so much of it. So certainly worthwhile putting that on your agenda if you haven't yet. Maybe there's still some particular toys, or as Jason mentioned, a mount you might be farming. So that is your cutoff time. It is Thursday. So just keep that in mind for Brewfest and what's going on with Brewfest stuff.
Yeah, and it's not all day Thursday either, but it's not at reset. You have that. It's one of those. You have like a 2-hour window.
Yeah, it's 1 o'clock. Yeah.
Or whatever it is between reset and the event ending. So if you can get in right at reset on Thursday, you got one more shot at Corrin, one more round of dailies, whatever. If you can get them in before the event ends, but yeah, we are coming up. It's been it's been a bit, and we got another 4 days left after today. Well, not even, I guess, because by 4 days from now it'll be over. So yeah, it's almost done for the year. But hey, you know what? If you're behind on stuff, if you didn't get a chance to do it, and you're like, oh, I really wanted these particular rewards, get some alts rolling. Go do the intro quests. Go do the bar tab barrels in Dragon Isles and in Kaz Algar. One tune going around all of the bar tab barrels is 220 tokens. So that's enough to buy pretty much any piece. I think there might be some more expensive ones. Most of the pieces are like 200. And then you got some left over. And again, they're war bound, so you can put them in your war bank. And yeah, like you have a lot of options. If you have time before the end of the event to sit down and grind it out, like you can get a bunch up front quickly if you have tunes to switch around to.
Yeah. And just keep in mind, like some of this stuff is going to be attached to housing, and some of these achievements are going to give you housing items most likely. So if you're someone who's itching for that and want to have as much options of what you can put down in your house at launch as possible, this should be on your list of things, as well as Harvest Festival, which is happening currently as well and also ends on Thursday. So if you want to participate in Harvest Fest and make sure you get those achievements done and that stuff done, that's possible. My expectation is next year there'll be rewards you can buy with tokens from Brewfest for housing. But there might be something of like, take down Corrin Dire Brew or whatever it is, might have a attached item. There might be like a particular shield you can hang on your wall or whatever it is that they choose to go in and put in there. So just keep that in mind of knocking out these achievements now. Might save you some time later when it comes to housing stuff that you might be looking for. Darkmoon Faire is also live because we are now on the Sunday of the first Sunday of the month, which means that we are now, it's live. It's going to be live until next Saturday on the 11th. So you are able to go out there and get yourself Darkmoon Faire tokens, do Darkmoon Faire achievements, which might be linked to housing. So just keep that in mind. If you're someone who's all like hyped up for housing stuff, all the things that we mentioned that are achievement and boss killing and et cetera, can eventually have housing things attached to them. We don't know everything that's going to be live, there at launch, but it is something to keep in mind. So if you want to get yourself your Darkmoon Dirigible, that's through Darkmoon Faire and collecting up tokens for that. If you want to get some more knowledge towards your professions, if you want to get knowledge towards old professions, which, hey, FYI, old professions will have crafting housing stuff in them, then go out and do this. Because if you've already capped out your current professions, you will get skill ups towards previous expansions professions, which when they throw in a bunch of housing stuff might end up for those expansions. And you might be someone who's, wanting to be able to craft a Cataclysm fireplace or something. Like, I don't know, who knows? Could be Deathwing themed, could be really cool. And so we can see what they choose to do. So yes, be sure you keep in mind that that's all attached to it too, as well as the races and pets and all the other fun stuff that's there to do with Darkmoon Faire, including the reputation and experience gain bonus that you can pick up and enjoy that.
Yeah, I'm hoping that they're gonna tread kind of lightly with distributing a bunch of the housing stuff, just because people aren't expecting it, right? So hopefully at first, like obviously there's gonna be stuff tied to previous achievements and all that. I'm hoping in terms of like vendor stuff or whatever that they don't overload us with that, like from holidays, from rotating events, whatever. I think that would be kind of the way to go. You know, if you've already done stuff or there's stuff that's available to do, you know, cool. Here you go. If it's, I think adding the wrinkles of, you know, exchanging currency for some or whatever, like for the initial, I don't know, a couple months, couple patches, whatever, maybe first year or whatever of housing being in, I kind of hope they don't lean too heavily into, hey, do this event thing and load up on currency and then buy this vendor stuff. You know, I think it should be a softer landing to have it come through stuff you already did or stuff that you can just go do if you want to. So that's kind of my hope for it, you know, in terms of that stuff. But we'll see. And I never really considered like Darkmoon Faire, for example, as like a housing sort of vector, but that could be, I could see some people getting really into that. Yeah. Like I want like a Darkmoon Faire house. Like that never occurred to me until this moment. So,
Yeah.
like that'd be pretty cool. Yeah.
I want to put a little merry-go-round in my yard, or I want to have one of those animals on a spring you can sit on and rock on or whatever, right? Like any like those sorts of things like, you could totally do.
The archway with the creepy N'Zoth eyeball thing in the middle of it, like put that in front of your, in your front gate or whatever.
Yard you can launch yourself out of. Like, I don't know, man. Like, there's tons of stuff you could have there. That would be really fun. All right, the micro holiday for the Great Gnomeregan run is going to be happening on this coming Saturday, so that is October the 11th. And so there's a quest that you can pick up that tells you to run from New Tinkertown and to Booty Bay, and this commemorates the community event, which was Running of the Gnomes, that happened every year. And yeah, typically I still know communities that organize the Running of the Gnomes to participate in it. So if you're someone who wants to get in there and, you know, knock out a fun little silly thing of trying to live through running a fresh, small gnome from New Tinkertown to Booty Bay, then feel free. If you're someone who is, you know, did this once on their gnome and has now leveled up their gnome and geared it and everything else, you can be one of the protector gnomes that does this run if you want to, who basically can get out there and run down and try and save all of the other gnomes that are doing their run, you know, in their poor little starter zone outfits with level, you know, 1 or whatever. They'll probably like level 12 by the time they reach Booty Bay just from exploring zones. But yeah, it's an event that's taking place, so be sure you're helping out with that if you're looking to participate. The Mana 4...
cool nod to the Running of the Gnomes that's been going on for many years. You know, they put it officially in the game, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago now. You know, again, like it's a micro holiday-esque type of event, right? There's nothing permanent you're going to get here, but it's a cool thing to do if you want to go check it out.
Yeah. The Mana Forge Omega Hall of Fame is closing. It is now full up. They've actually finally gotten 200 teams to finish off Dimensius, and we are now seeing that Hall of Fame coming to a close. So for folks who have not done it yet, you have literally tomorrow to kill Dimensius, and then the Hall of Fame will close and you won't get in the Hall of Fame. So if you're looking to get that famed Slayer of, and that is one of the titles you can grab, then you got to get that done this week, man. You get very little time left. Hopefully things align for you. This has taken a while for this 200 teams to close. Like, if you think about it, like I feel like we normally see this much sooner. So I think the balance and the choice of not going in and poking bosses too much to sort of tune bosses too much approach they've done has definitely slowed down the Hall of Fame closure. I am curious whether this means that we're going to see a pass at these last couple of bosses on Mythic, especially with Hall of Fame closing. Typically, once Hall of Fame closes, there's another big pass that happens where they're like, hey, we're going to make, you know, this boss health lower, or we're going to make these abilities less punishing to sort of help some teams get in there and start killing this boss, since the famed title is no longer on the table, right? I assume they didn't want to do stuff like this because you don't want a situation where it's like, hey, it's the last week and 1,200 teams kill the boss in that last week and get titles, right? It's, you know, this is for the teams that are almost there. Like, I remember back in Shadowlands being like, we were in the closing of the Hall of Fame week for Alliance side, because back then it was split between Horde and Alliance. And we were like on our last raid day of that week. I think it was a Monday, and we defeated the first Gahoon. We defeated Gahoon on like the 2 hours or an hour before raid was left or whatever it was, when the reset was the next day, and got Hall of Fame. And it was like this huge big deal for us to accomplish. There's a couple of teams that'll probably be going through a similar experience with this week, so we'll see a few teams finish that off, get their Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it's hard for me to gauge if it's been longer than usual or not. I mean, how far into the season are we? About 8 weeks or something, I want to say. It's an 8 boss raid, and there's been tiers where we've had more bosses than that. Not lately. I think they've kind of standardized the 8 boss raid concept, but there were times where we had much larger raids, 12 bosses or whatever. And so I'm not sure about that. It does feel like it's been kind of a slow lurch with the end of Mana Forge Omega in those terms, though. Like, it definitely feels that way. I don't have anything in front of me to see kind of historicals, but I mean, they really should just throw in some baseline nerfs, right? If Hall of Fame's done, why not throw everybody else a bit of a bone? And they're pulling your attention in many different directions right now. With Legion Remix coming out, and with Alpha being up, and just all the swirling conversation about that and everything else. So I think that would be a good thing to do. I think it's time. If Hall of Fame is done, I think you can afford to just straight up nerf the bosses. Yes, we're getting turbo boost, and yes, we're getting the stacking renown buffs as time goes on in the raid zone, but targeted nerfs can be very powerful. Even just some baseline health reductions and stuff would be huge. So I hope we see them, because it encourages people to keep playing the game, right? Like, it puts a different set of goals in reach for teams that without the nerfs, it's okay. Maybe if everybody hangs in and everybody does enough raid renown to get their 15%, and everybody gets enough crests to get all that item level, then this fight's going to be so much easier, guys. I promise. That's a much harder sell than, hey, do you see they cut 11% boss health off of Lumathar?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When we had a 9% wipe the other night or whatever. Just the example, like, there's a difference between these paths are available and we're actually changing the functionality of a boss or whatever. So, I think it would be great. It's been 2 months now. We're into the .5 patch. We can absorb some Mana Forge Omega nerfs, and I don't think anybody's going to feel like we got cheated out of something, or there's some important reason not to do that. I think it's time.
Yeah. All right, Legion Remix content update notes. So this week on Tuesday, we are getting not only Legion Remix, we're getting the Turbo Boost event in the live game. So for Legion Remix, the stuff I wanted to sort of highlight here and mention to people is this is similar to what we saw in the Miss Remix. We are going to have bronze that you can earn. They have buffed up the time running journey bronze that you earn by a substantial amount. So all infinite research quests now give you 1,000, emissary quests now give 4,000, special assignment quests give 4,000, and world quests give 200. So you can now earn a lot more bronze than you previously could. There is obviously an accelerated pace from level 10 to 80 that players are going to be able to sort of power through and collect power and face epic challenges. This is for folks that want to see and experience a reimagined Legion experience at an accelerated rate with more power than they've ever seen before in that experience. So if you're looking to get into Legion Remix, I know we've talked about it on a few episodes, so I'm not going to dive super deep into it, but it is coming out. It's happening Tuesday. Be sure that you are ready and on board and happy to hop in and check that out. They did mention something in here, which is that classic players can join this by simply installing the modern World of Warcraft client and hopping in, and trial accounts can actually play up to level 20 for free before needing to subscribe in Legion Remix. So if you're like wanting to just test this out, just be like, hey, what does this feel like? Does this still feel like the old Legion I remember? Whatever it is, you haven't been subbed to WoW for a little while. You can actually make a trial account and hop into Legion Remix for the first 20 levels, which isn't going to take you long to get the first 20 levels, I'm just saying. But you can at least get that experience again and sort of see what that's going to feel like and have a peek at it if you want to. So keep that in mind. Or maybe you're trying to min-max your money and you're like, hey, I'm not going to sub until I hit level 20, then I'm going to sub, and that way I've gotten free playtime up to level 20. It's a possibility that's where your mindset's at. Feel free to take advantage.
Yeah, it's pretty cool that you can do that. I guess the thing to keep in mind, if you don't remember or you didn't play or aren't familiar with Remix, like, you will make a character that you designate as a time runner on an existing retail server, right? There's not like some sequestered set of Legion Remix servers. Yeah. You just make one on whatever server you want to make a character on, and then you play and you have an exit point, which in MOP Remix, it was at the end of the event, your character just is no longer a time runner, and we set you up with like some starter gear for the end of Dragonflight and some gold, and here you go. In Legion Remix, you'll be able to determine what that point is for you if you want to just take your character out of time running and then like play through the 11.2.5.2.7 stuff coming up with that character. You'll be able to do that. So that's cool. It's very flexible. It's very streamlined. It's fun. I mean, Legion was a great expansion. There's so much great content in there to go back and revisit. Man, looking at the line item, says World Quest now reward 200 bronze. That is going to be the trap that I fall all the way into, because I'm going, well, if I just do these 40 World Quests that rolled up to, because it's, in recent days, we're sort of at this rotation where you get kind of 2 big rounds of World Quests a week, and sometimes there's, some other ones will pop up here and there, but it's a small handful that pop up in between the Tuesday reset roll and the Friday night roll. Back in Legion, now they could change this for Remix, but World Quests were one of the flashy new toys, and they rolled up like every 4 hours. There were different World Quests popping up. So I know because I was out there doing them, collecting artifact power, and in BFA too. So I look at that and go, oh boy, I'm gonna have to keep it real, for myself. I can't be cycling tunes, clearing the map of the bronze World Quests every 4 hours or whatever, but there's a ton of cool stuff on offer. The mode it's designed to be fast and fun and rewarding. They've done some cool stuff with the artifact tree. Like everybody's got the same artifact tree, and you can build it out in a couple different ways, and you get some cool perks depending on what other gear you find. I think they made some interesting changes coming out of MOP Remix in terms of gearing and stuff like that I think will probably work better. But ultimately, this is also going to be a mode where you power your character up to absurd heights and you just play solo through whatever you feel like doing. I think is probably where we end up, which is it's cool in a way because you go, oh, look how broken this is. I'm so OP. Oh, look at all the stuff I collected. But to me, it also runs super counter to what an MMORPG is. The higher up you go, the less need for cooperation there is in a remix mode, and it quickly becomes just too much of a good thing, I think. So we'll see where this one lands. They are doing some stuff with this one to differentiate it from MOP Remix that might lessen the blow of some of that stuff. I'm going to be playing it, but I'm just hoping that I don't regret it the way I kind of regretted MOP Remix. Not that I regret my collection, but geez.
No, you're very happy that you completed all of that.
Yeah, but just thinking back on doing it, it's like I go into MOP content now and I'm like, oh yeah, which is sad because I loved MOP. Yeah.
That's the difference. I still love MOP content. I still enjoy those zones.
Yeah. Remix like burned it out for me. I mean, it'll probably come back someday because I'll get far enough away from the bad feelings of Remix and just remember the good stuff. And there was good stuff about MOP Remix too, and obviously I really loved MOP. So it's just a matter of time. But I think bringing a Remix now back, 14 months later or whatever after the last one, it's like, oh, here we go. So I'll be in there, I'll be playing, I'll be grabbing power and powering up and soloing stuff hopefully soon and doing the exact thing that I'm going to complain about later.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, Turbo Boost. right? There's a couple things I want to just mention up front for people to sort of expect timeline wise for this, because we have talked this topic to death a little bit too as well, but we want to be sure people know what they're getting. So with the release of this on Tuesday, we're having the upgrade tracks extend from 6 to 8, which means you'll be able to get those extra item levels on your gear, if that's the particular pieces you have, if you have the crest to do so. Now, there is still a crest cap in place, which means do not go spending all of your, like upgrading all of your lower tier crests right now, because you will still hit your max of your quota and you won't be able to do any more crests this week. It's still better to do Mythic Plus or whatever it is you're looking to do to try and earn towards your caps, because those caps are still in place. They will not go away until the 21st of October. So this is why I sort of hinted at the top of the show, this isn't actually that much of a power increase really at all, because you still are only gaining as much as what you can spend crests on. Now, if you happen to get nothing from your vault and you're extending in raid like I am right now, at least I can sort of, take the mythic pieces I currently have and bump them up an extra, set of eye levels, an extra 6 eye levels on the mythic pieces I currently have. However, it's not going to be a massive increase on my character like we were expecting if the cap was being lifted now. So the 21st is when that really big power bump is going to come into play. Keep that in mind. The 21st is also when we see the dinars come in, so you can actually start buying stuff. So we'll get a dinar the week of the 21st, and we'll start earning towards our next dinar. So that's another thing to keep in mind. It's also when we can start earning out of running Mythic Plus and other content more catalyst charges to be able to catalyze your gear. So the 21st is when the really big spike happens. What we're getting with this initial release is the ability to upgrade our hero and myth track items an additional 6 item levels, as well as our crafted items an additional 6 item levels. That's what we're getting with this release on Tuesday. Outside of that, we're not really getting anything new for Turbo Boost, so just keep that in mind.
Yeah, if you have like a piece or a couple pieces, or you saved up some crests, like you have some stuff you really want to bump up, then you can bump them up higher than the current cap as of Sunday. But yeah, without raising the caps, it's kind of awkward. Also, yeah, I don't really know why they're doing it like this. I almost feel like it would have been better off just to have it all come out on the 21st. But
I'm with you.
Whatever. I guess I've been in the spot the last couple weeks where I'm like, well, what do I spend my gildeds on? So I have some hanging out. So I guess it's okay, but it's going to feel really bad this week to be doing, my normal routine, and I have all of these extended tracks, and I'm crest capped, so I'm getting weathers for doing, plus 12s and 13s. And yeah, then I got to wait another 2 weeks to upgrade all that stuff. So it is what it is. It'll be great once we hit the 21st, and then you do your weekly dungeons and you end up with a ton of gildeds, and then you're pumping stuff all the way up.
Yes, and not only that, obviously with that 21st, we'll have all of the delving journey process come in. So if you aren't finished the delving journey yet, that progress will be highly accelerated. You'll earn more crests from doing that content. You'll earn more Valor Stones from doing that content. There's going to be additional sources of companion experience that are going to be added in for additional weekly sources. There's going to be untainted mana crystals you can obtain through doing delves that get you the tier 9 hero track trinkets you can buy off of vendors. Tier 9 and aboves are going to drop champion loot from the chest, so you get champion loot right away on characters. We're also seeing that disc belt, that belt that people have all been sort of equipped with, the 701 eye level belt, and that's going to get a 20% nerf to all the effects. Well, not all, but the majority of effects that you have in it. The ones that really matter: the charge bolts, charge crystal, critical chain, electrical current, spark burst, and static charge. I use spark burst. I know it's going to get 20% nerf. I've already gotten a mythic belt. I have that in the wings for one of my specs. The other spec's actually already using it because it already outperforms the disc belt that I currently have. So that's something to keep in mind. Be sure before the 21st you're getting a belt lined up to replace your disc belt with, because it will not be better than a hero tier belt once that rolls around if you're using any of those abilities that are being nerfed. So keep that in mind as well, because that's another factor that's kicking in. The cooldown manager that we've sort of seen a little preview of on alpha, we'll be getting another version of it coming into the game, which will allow you to allow more ordering and hiding and unhiding of spells and buffs. I will say one of the things in alpha that I was looking for very early on, which is something that a few people have now pointed out, is there's no way to set a cooldown to only have the button appear when that ability is off cooldown and disappear when it's on. Appear when it's on cooldown and disappear when it's off cooldown. You can't. There's a lot of on-offs that they don't have set right now. So all your abilities show all of the time in the cooldown manager, and when you press them, that puts a timer up on them, and you can sort of see what's happening with them. I want the ability to be like, when this is on cooldown, hide it, or when this isn't on cooldown, show it, or whatever it is, to be able to have buttons appear on my screen as, you know, things are coming off cooldown, or have abilities appear on my screen when they're on cooldown so I can see when the next time I can press it is. Those sorts of options are important things to have, as opposed to just always having something on your screen, because it's much more noticeable to me as a player when something appears than when something is just statically there and I have to keep checking it, you know, visually to see what's going on with it. That to me is a less noticeable thing. So allow us to have better hiding utility. They do mention like stuff that can be hidden by default and those sorts of aspects of the cooldown manager, but what we need is, hey, I want this, I want, when the spell is in this state, this thing to happen. When there's 5 seconds left on this, I want to be able to have it glow. When there's like those sorts of things are things that I'm looking for in cooldown manager. So they need to get a lot of that stuff in, because what they're doing with add-ons going forward has raised a lot of eyebrows, and their cooldown manager is not in a place yet where it can even start to accommodate for some of those things that are happening with it. So I'm hopeful that they keep iterating and keep iterating and keep iterating as they have been on this. They just need to speed up the process. That's where I'm at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, this is a big jump, because I think the initial implementation of it we got is basically unusable. I mean, maybe some people are using it. If you like it, cool. I'm not trying to insult you, but I turned it on and I went, oh, that's it? Okay, see ya. With the iteration that we're getting on Tuesday, you can reorder what shows in there, right? You can remove stuff, you can drop stuff in different buckets, right? There's like different categories of cooldowns it will track, and you can reorder them to your liking, and you can use edit mode to move the bar around. But the really cool thing that I've enjoyed so far messing around with it is the buff tracking, because, for example, it's really important for me to track shield block and ignore pain, and I can set those and I can track them, which I've been doing with a weak aura for years, but now I can just do it with the baseline UI, and you know, you can see like duration on them and stuff. So all that stuff is great, and I can even throw in like, oh, I can show spell reflect. You know, when that's active, I can have a bar. I can use the cooldown manager to turn that into a bar that's ticking down that displays where I want it to display. Same thing with like shield wall, you know, anything like that. So it's a lot more customizable. It's a lot more useful than the initial implementation of it was, which is good. I mean, we've seen all of this UI stuff be a work in progress. So I'm hopeful that this isn't the last, pass they're going to take on it anytime soon. And I think the alpha version does have some features that aren't in yet for this patch. So, it's a feature that's still currently in development, but the good thing is it went from something that I wouldn't use at all to something that, like, now at least I can see what I would do with it. And like I said, I will, considering the upcoming add-on debacle that is unfolding and the sort of just my personal lack of using many add-ons or many weak auras or whatever, I'm going to experiment with just trying to switch over to this and see if I can make it work for me. Even if I just end up using the buff tracking and not anything else. Because, when it comes to playing a tank spec, a prot warrior especially, like, you need to have that information front and center that you are protecting yourself, right? And the game, the out-of-the-box game hasn't done a great job of presenting that previously, but this is a big step in that direction. So that's really good.
Yeah,
I guess the problem is players are going to need to know that they're supposed to be leveraging it, right? Like if you're kind of a newish player in, or you've been gone for a long time, how do you know that this is there? And how do you know that I want to play Prot Warrior? I should be tracking the shield block and ignore pain buffs, right? Like that's sort of the next step is like, how do we go from, okay, the game will present this information to you, to like, how do you now lead the horse to water, right? So that they can begin drinking. That part I don't know, but that's a whole other story. I guess the good thing is if you have something this simple, if this becomes reasonably usable, this kind of stuff is exportable, right? So, you could do a tutorial and here, hey, do you want to learn how to play the spec? Here's a suggested setup with cooldown manager and everything, check it out, see how it works for you. And then that might be sort of the bridge. Again, it's still coming from the community, but I think Blizzard is okay with that overall. And that's why they make some of this stuff customizable even within their own UI. So I don't know. It's a much more robust set of tools than the initial release. It's much more than we've had in the past. So it's a good step. There's definitely more stuff we want to see come in, but at least it's now getting to the point where you could use this and actually get value out of it.
Yeah, and I definitely think there's a place for it. I want it to be accelerated in how fast they're putting it together. Like it's one of those very known quantities in that you can literally go to Weakora right now and take a button and then just look at what options are attached to it that are there and be like, hey, I want to have at least a third of these really readily accessible that people are going to use, right? Like I should be able to make the text larger and smaller, change the coloration of the font, change the cooldown from being a solid 3 seconds to being a 3 point something seconds, change there's certain things you just right off the bat are like, this should be options that you need to include into this. I understand them being like, hey, we don't want to make this too complicated for players. Just have an advanced tab is what this really comes down to. When you click on the advanced tab, have a huge breakout of all of these options that players can have for when it triggers, how it triggers, if it triggers and has a glow effect that attaches to it when it's off cooldown or when it's going to be off cooldown in a certain period of time, or all those things should be attached to this very quickly in making this more functional for players. So I'm hoping we see that happen soon. Okay. As far as recent allies go, there is now a recent allies tab inside the social frame, which means you can actually, friend people from groups that you've run. If there was someone nice that you were doing stuff with, you can have that function in there. I would also like if there was report options in this, because it would be great if once you left a group, you were like, hey, I really want to report that guy. I forgot to, or I didn't. And so you can then go in and report. And I will mention, reporting wise, there is still no option for reporting behavior inside of Mythic Plus keys. If someone puts up hey, I want to vote to abandon, and then just refuses to proceed when the rest of the group wants to proceed, and just decides to sit at the start of that dungeon until it comes off cooldown, they can try again for an abandon and try again for an abandon. There is no way to report that player for just conceding and giving up and essentially forcing an abandon to happen. Right? There's a reason why there's a vote in place. If you lose the vote, you should finish the key. So there needs to be an incentive to do that. And if that incentive is, hey, there's a report button that is there to actually report that sort of behavior, that needs to be in there, because there just isn't one right now. So I think that's something that needs to be added to that frame if you're going to have a system like this in place. And just in general, it's a helpful thing to be able to report player behavior as something that's going on, as opposed to the names or communication, which is the only things you can report on right now is the character's name or communication that took place. So I want behavior. Let me report behavior, because there's bad behaviors out there. Okay. The spell search bar now has a suggestion box for show assisted rotation spells, which means you can now go, hey, I want to see what's going to be inside my assisted rotation when I press this button. That will actually let you see which spells are going to be inside of that rotation for you. So you know which ones to add to your bar that you're going to have to press yourself, because they're not part of the assisted rotation. So keep that in mind. As far as groups go, with the various fixes to pre-made groups, there is now a proper way to report groups that are listed as advertising. Yes, they have report advertisement, but the issue with report advertisement is when you report a group for advertising and then you refresh the Mythic Plus pane, that group's back. So now when you do that, it shouldn't show up again. Because I have definitely had times where I basically will be like, all right, I'm looking for specifically a 10 halls because I'm trying to farm the ring or whatever it is out of there, and I will go search for 10 halls and a whole bunch of ads will pop up, and I report all of them, and then I'll hit refresh it and a bunch of ads will pop up, but fewer of them, and I'll report those, and then I'll refresh it, and just a couple more of them will pop up, and I'll do those, and then I refresh, and then there's nothing. So it's like, well, I don't know what the search system is that eventually gets rid of all of them if I just keep reporting them over and over again. But if they've now made it so they will no longer appear in the list after subsequent searches, that's great. So that will save me some, brain RAM. I don't have to think about it as much. So I'm happy about that. Get into legal.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. Like, I don't understand that either. Like, I've noticed whenever I kind of am in Group Finder for something, I get kind of inconsistent results, and that may be, part of what the behavior you're describing. So hopefully this actually just straight up works, and that after you report a group, it doesn't show anymore, because that's incredibly frustrating. So it's good. I mean, man, I don't the whole like this and the thing about the abandoned system. These are like social engineering problems with the Keystone Dungeon system that WoW just really hasn't been able to solve with UI elements so far. So I'm glad they're still trying. I hope these make it a bit better. I'm sure there's still going to be more work to do, but hopefully this at least streamlines like looking for a group, and you can find groups that you want instead of, the ad spam. Nobody wants to comb through all that when they're trying to, actually get into a key or assemble a group or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Legion Remix, as we mentioned, happening this week. There are rewards attached to it. And I as far as housing goes, and I just want to mention, I'm just going to read the top part of this blog, because this is what's really important here, which is that Legion Remix opens up opportunities to add a variety of new and returning items to your collection, along with new housing decor you can collect and use once housing goes live in the Midnight Expansion, which is going to be December 2nd. Keep that in mind, although they say in the Midnight Expansion, which might mean this isn't December 2nd because Remix isn't over yet, so it hasn't rolled over yet. Like, I don't know what they're actually doing with it. Just keep in mind, housing goes live on December 2nd. We don't know if you're going to be able to get your Legion Remix stuff then, or if you have to wait till actually midnight is out. However, regardless of the point, to help you set your sights on items you want most, we've rounded up a complete list of how and where to get these items. It's important to note that not all items are available to collect with the launch of Legion Remix. Some will become available with release of specific content over the weeks ahead, because like they're going to be rolling out different bosses and different wings and there's phases of Legion Remix. Keep that in mind. So as far as decor goes, they put down a complete list of like the new mounts and toys and pets and all that. They say there's going to be additional copies of items you can purchase for housing stuff once you've earned certain achievements. So if you earn an achievement, you go to Demelius, and then you're able to buy the first copy of it, and you can just buy subsequent copies of it. And so that will be like, hey, if you want, 15 chairs that look like they're from a fell infused house, then you will be able to buy 15 of these chairs or whatever it is from that particular vendor, and have those inside of your collection for your houses. So keep that in mind. Outside of that, yeah, there's going to be new armor appearances you can get, new weapon appearances you can get, new toys, pets, and mounts. And there's going to be rare toys, including the golden Hearthstone card, Lord Jaraxxus. If you're a WoW in-game Hearthstone card collector, this is something you might be interested in. Who knows? And there's plenty of stuff in there. So this is a blog post I'll throw inside the show notes if you want to actually dig into and look at, to be able to see, essentially the complete list of everything. I imagine Wowhead will probably have a really good particular layout about where these things are from, because what they have listed right now are primarily the achievement things. We know that like doing the raids, stuff in Argusian Reach, doing the Court of Ferondris, like this stuff gets you different housing access stuff that you can buy. I will say stuff like the Fell Fountain, for example, costs 30,000 bronze. So I don't know if you can buy multiples of those, but that's a lot of bronze to spend on one thing for your house. Just keep that in mind. Same thing with the Legion's Hollow Communicator. I don't know whether or not you want to be communicating with the Legion in your home, but if you do, it's another 30,000 bronze. I don't know if you want one like in your bathroom, and one inside of your kitchen, and one inside of like you'd have with a telephone potentially for some people back in the day when they had the corded phones, and they'd have that one rich person who has a phone in their bathroom for whatever reason. That, is something that maybe they want a Hollow Communicator for. Who knows? Keep that in mind.
Maybe. Yeah. I told you never to call this wall like Spaceballs, right?
That's right.
Yeah, that's what happens if you put the Legion communicator somewhere private. This is it. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff from this. I mean, I guess the good thing is you don't have to spend any bronze on this stuff because you can do the achievements, right? So, but then you have to do the achievements. So that's it. It's what would be great, and I doubt it's in the data for this patch. Would be like the problem is the timing just doesn't work, right? Like this is coming in before housing is in, so if you have these achievements done, cool, but you may not know, and you don't know whether you have stuff unlocked or not, and there might be something in the game that tells you that you already have this or whatever, but I kind of doubt it because the housing data is not there. So it's a little messy. There's a lot of cool stuff, but I guess the good thing is from what they're telling us, it doesn't seem like any of this stuff is Remix specific. So if you miss out on it during Legion Remix, or you don't play it, you play it but you don't buy this stuff, then you will be able to do the achievements and unlock them that way. It's just a little awkward. It would be great if the timing would have worked out the other way around, because I was looking at this going, oh yeah, well, that's a lot of bronze, but I'll be doing a lot, so I'll just buy stuff. But then I'm thinking, wait, I probably have all or most of these achievements done already. How am I going to know the difference? And then is that going to make my brain itchy when I'm looking at the vendors and figuring out how to spend my bronze, and stuff is appearing but isn't like red text or whatever? It's a little unfortunate. It is cool that they're leaning into like all of these unlockable props and stuff from Legion to put into your house. I mean, it's, if you're like, playing like a demon hunter or a warlock or something, and that's kind of how you want to go, this stuff looks awesome. It would be a really cool way to do up a house or a room or whatever. But it's a little less obvious as to how we're going to interact with it than it is the armor transmog or the weapon transmog or the mounts, the pets, the toys, like all that stuff. We know how that works. That's all in there, and we'll either already have it or we won't. We will know that we don't have it or whatever. But yeah, tying housing into this, I didn't think that they would, but obviously it now makes sense that they are. It's just I don't know. Having the whole list of it and the achievements and the bronze cost, but not having the logic in the game to tell you whether or not you're eligible for the housing reward already, that might be a little bit weird.
Yeah, they got something for everyone in here. My personal note to anyone who's done housing before is something that's really important to me is lighting. So I will 100% be getting the large Legion candle, the Legion's Fell Brazier, and the Legion's Fell Torch, because that can really create atmosphere in a space on a big level. And so those things to me are like very high. There's even a small Legion candle as well. Those are things that are high on my list of, I want to get these items in particular because those are things I definitely don't want to miss out on. And they're not super expensive. Like we're talking about me spending maybe 20,000 bronze to get the lighting stuff that I want to get, which is less than the Legion Holo Communicator. It is, however, the cost of 2 Legion torture racks, which I don't necessarily know why you want a torture rack inside of your house. I'm not going to judge. There's different people out there, and maybe they really want a Legion torture rack inside of their home. But yes, that is another option you can get for 10,000, and you get that for doing the heroic Broken Isles World Quests achievement. So I don't think it's too hard to earn either. Just keep that in mind. Okay, as far as the Midnight expansion information goes, this is sort of like us chipping away at that giant block of information that we got. The information wrap up is a post they put together, and as Jason sort of went through that and the other 90 something pages of information and hemmed it down to what we got here, and then I hemmed it down further, this is what we're going to cover this. So as I mentioned earlier, housing early access begins December 2nd. Players with the Midnight expansion can begin setting up their new homes on December 2nd. You'll be able to purchase your first home, establish your neighborhood, and begin designing your space with the use of the decor items that you have. Not all features are going to be available until the launch of Midnight, so there'll be some features that aren't available right away. As far as questing goes with Midnight, this is just a useful piece of information for everyone. You will be able to, well, everyone's going to start their journey inside Eversong Woods, first and foremost, but how you progress from there is something that's going to be up to you. So you can either take one of 3 paths. You can head to the, Zul'Aman troll area. You can help out with the Harandar, or you can accompany Erator. Now, keep in mind, you have to have completely finished Erator's journey, his actual thing, to unlock the new hub city that you're going to be unlocking. So if you're someone who wants to go to the new hub city and everything, you do need to have finished his campaign, which kind of to me like shifts that up my priority list of things that I want to do, because that's kind of an important thing. That's the Argentina. The Argentina is going to be the new hub city. It is built. Well, here's the write-up for it. To enter, you'll need an Argentina key, and yours awaits you at the end of Eretor's journey quest line. Forged from the remnants of Dalaran, it can return you to the Argentina whenever you need respite from the endless fight against Xal'atath and her sleepless army. So that is the Argentina, and to me that means that as much as I really want to do Harundar first, I might do Eretor first just to have that unlocked. I don't know if you need to complete all the other campaigns and then complete, well, in order to complete Eretor's journey, but I mean, either way, I'll probably start with Eretor's journey just to make sure I get that unlocked. But keep that in mind. That's another one of those factors to have in your cap. Housing, and this is something I want to mention inside this post because we don't know how much of this is going to go live on December 2nd, but there is a chunk of this about housing, which is in Midnight, players can acquire decor in a variety of ways, whether it's from purchasing an item from a vendor, earning it an achievement, crafting it with a profession, or getting a reward from a quest line. There's multitudes of options opening the way for you to decorate your home. Once Upon a Quest is the first title of a way to earn it, which is playing through the game. You'll come across many quests that reward decorations. Most quests can be done once and only reward the decor once per account, but multiple copies of that given piece of decor are often desired. We've made sure that when decor comes from one-time sources like quests or achievements, there are avenues to get additional copies, usually from a vendor for various currencies, so you don't need to do that content again. Thank you. I do not want to have to like do the same quest on 7 different alts to get 7 cups or something. Like that just sounds irritating to me, so I'm very happy that they're doing that. For example, Alliance players might remember the old quest, the Perenolde Tiara, which sent players from Stormwind to the ruins of Alterac in the Hillsbrad foothills. It always awarded a decent chunk of Stormwind reputation, but now will also award a Jewel Crafter's Tent. Once earned, if players want multiple copies of the Jewel Crafter's Tent, they can purchase additional copies from Stormwind in gold. On Horde side, players will be going through the storyline of the Battle for Azeroth, may remember adventuring with Vol'dun. Adventuring in Vol'dun, rescuing the Thunder Lizard Loa Akunda, who had been trapped by one of his cultists and Akunda the Exalted. After finishing this quest and clearing which is the quest clearing the fog, players will earn the decor Akunda the Tapestry, then can purchase additional copies in Zuldazar from with war resources. Oh, interesting. So you actually use up your old war resources. That's cool. Finally, in Kunlai Summit, these are just examples they're giving, players have climbed a mountain to help a seer reach the top and learn more about the late Pandaren Emperor Xiaohao. In addition to some very stylish footwear, players will now also get the Xiaohao ceremonial bell to place in their house. Afterwards, more copies can be purchased from lore walkers in Vale of Eternal Blossoms. I just had this image flash through my head of someone with like 12 bells sitting inside their living room that they can bang on whenever they want to. With the Midnight launch, any quests that grant decor will do so retroactively for anyone who has completed them. So keep that in mind. The other ways, as they mentioned, is achievements, reputations. So if you're looking at like max notes and reputations, there will be reputation-based rewards that you can purchase. And shopping with the neighbors vendors. So the neighborhoods that you have your house in will have essentially a decorator that you can purchase things from there. And this decor is generally inexpensive and sort of gives you a quick start on, you know, your housing journey. So if you're like, I don't have a good bed, you'll be able to go and buy a default kind of bed from the neighborhood vendor. You also earn them from raids and bosses. So raid bosses and dungeons can also have decor assigned to them. In the case of raids, individual bosses can have decor, while in dungeons, only the final boss is going to drop decor. If a boss drops decor, it's a 100% chance to drop once per kill. So if you want multiple copies, you'll have to run it multiple times, but you won't have to hunt down the rare drop decor over many runs. Thank you again I do not want to have to go back and like run Argus over and over and over again because I want my special astral bench or something. Like I don't want to have to do that. So I'm very glad that if I want 5 astral benches, I can just run it 5 times and know that I'm getting 5 of them. So there might not be an astral bench. I kind of hope there is now, because it sounds kind of neat to have like a bench made of stars that you can have on your property. But yeah, anyways, on initial launch, most bosses won't have decor, but we'll continue to add the back catalog post launch. So let us know what you're looking for. An astral bench is one of the things. Just putting that out there. I'm just putting it. All right. Making it with professions. There will be profession craftables that you are able to make. There was a question, I know, during the Q&A specifically about whether or not you'll be able to get profession skill ups off of crafting this stuff, and the answer was yes. So there is absolutely a possibility that there could be something like in tailoring, for example, that part of the new level up of best ways to level up tailoring for whatever expansion it is might be that you make drapes and make sheets and make, pillowcase covers or blankets or whatever as part of that new thing, because we don't know what that's going to look like, but that could be pretty neat. So keep that in mind. Your profession stuff might change, your leveling path might change, and that's where I say previous expansion stuff like Darkmoon Faire, going back and getting those skill ups ain't a bad idea. You might be able to make some stuff that you want to make, as far as like having your Deathwing, sort of like your Spider-Man pajamas. Maybe it'll be like Deathwing pajamas that you can like lay out on your bed or whatever it is you want to do. You can also get them from delves. So there'll be delves out there too that drop decorations, but they haven't really gotten into specific ones yet. They're just saying wait until launch and you'll find out more about the delve ones that can come out there. So in general, that is what we're looking at for housing stuff that I wanted to cover from the new updates of housing stuff that's coming into the game.
Yeah, I mean, basically it's sort of what we assumed or hoped, I guess, and it's sort of what they've alluded to in the past, but this is much more kind of laid out, like how these sources work. And the idea is you can get housing rewards from doing more or less anything in the game, right? Like they come from all these different sources. I think the idea is good of like, okay, you have access to this piece, you get one because you have earned access to it or whatever, and now you can get copies via some relatively simple means, right? Whether it's just straight up coin, or you have to go get some resource from a particular expansion and then trade it in for that. Stuff like that. It sounds reasonable. I think the idea of stashing some kind of like rare drop decor item on a raid boss at a 0.01% drop chance would just be horrible. Like it just kind of goes against the point of the system, right? Like we have talked in the past a lot about prestige, right, in World of Warcraft, and what is important when it comes to aspirational activities or rewards, or like wanting players to be able to distinguish themselves based on stuff that they've done or accomplished in the game. I don't think housing fits into that like space at all. I don't think you want to have prestige housing items. I don't think that you want to stash them behind difficult to obtain achievements or anything like that. Maybe time consuming ones, but not things that require a high level of play.
I want to clarify one thing, because I get where you're going with this, and I get where people might push back. I just want to clarify one thing, which is I think it's important to have trophy items for your housing, but the reason why it's important to have them isn't, hey, I want to show these off to people who come into my house. It's, I want to remember these important experiences my character and I have had over the years. So it's more about remembering the memory of it than it is about, hey, I want to flex, I think, in my opinion, when it comes to housing items. I think when you're out in the world where everyone can kind of see you and you're traveling to public spaces regularly, that's more about having the items you quote unquote want to flex. I have my Zulian Tiger. Check it out. I was around and managed to get this thing back in the day. And or I have my Amani Warbear, the original one. You can't get this now. Haha. Like that kind of thing happens with those very public spaces. Your home isn't a really public space. So it would be weird to like go into your house and be like, I'm just going to bring people, random strangers into my home to flex on them with what I have inside of my house. That seems really strange to me, versus being like, no, I want to have these items that are there as trophies that I'm like, I remember when I did that and that was really cool, and I remember when I did that and that was really cool. I think that's more what we're getting at. What I'm getting at with that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you don't need to tie that stuff to, like, I mean, okay, if you're not a raider or something, then maybe you don't get the stuff for killing that raid boss until farther down the line, right? Because a heroic raider is going to get AOTC, and then maybe there's, some kind of housing thing tied to that, or for killing the heroic boss or whatever.
Xal'atath's feet mounted on a panel.
Yeah, right, exactly. I mean, they give the example about, having done, 25 player Onyxia, and that's how you unlock the head, and then you can buy copies of the head from the goblin vendor. Cool, like that stuff like that is great. So I would imagine that there'll be stuff like that is tied to new and upcoming raid instances that some players won't have access to until they outlevel them, and then they get rolled into legacy content. But I think it's okay. I don't think I think it's one thing to have the ahead of the curve achievement that rewards the mount, and the Mythic Plus seasonal ratings that reward mounts and everything like that, but we don't need housing items in that reward space. If you should be able to just get whatever you want for your house with time and effort, not necessarily like having coordinated play at high levels, having to distinguish yourself. Like, it's just stuff to put in your house. So I think it's just it ends up being a different sort of it carries less of a weight, I think, than, I don't know, like Mage Tower appearances, or those prestige cosmetics for like top end play within a season. I think it's great to have housing just be outside of that, and if you want something, it's going to be available. You just have to do what the game asks you to do at some point in time. I've been a proponent for having prestige rewards and stuff for years and years, and there's places where they belong. I don't think housing is a place where they belong, and it doesn't sound like, at least out the door, that they're going in that direction.
Yeah, I agree with you entirely. You did remind me of another thing I wouldn't mind, which is I'd love the armor racks from Legion of the armors that we collected in our bases. That'd be a cool thing to be able to.
That was really cool in Legion.
When you,
I love that.
Collect those armor sets.
Being able to show off armor sets. Well, hey, they're adding. They're adding feats of strength around having collected 4 sets. Maybe there's some kind of hooks they could put in where it's like, okay, in your wardrobe collection, if you have these full sets, then maybe they can put in some kind of armor rack or like a mannequin or something you can hang it on and show off.
Hang on. Yeah,
that'd be so cool, especially for like warrior mains. Make like a hallway with all your armor sets.
Oh, yeah.
Like that'd be awesome.
Yeah,
be like a bat cave thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, like, I'm with you.
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
Yeah,
and we have the trading post mannequins and all that, right? So I don't know. Maybe there's some way they could hook that all in and make that happen. I think that would be something people would really get into, I think.
I agree. I'm with you entirely on that. All right. The Journeys user interface that's coming in. This is a new tab that you're going to be able to click on, which is going to help you keep track of Renown, Delves, and Prey progress, which is supposed to be more intuitive and streamlined, and even a shortcut to check out what's in your Great Vault rewards and what's potentially there. So my hope is, with this Journeys tab they talk about coming in Midnight, is that you're able to see how many delves you've run, which level of delves you've run, and how close you are to upgrading that particular reward. That to me is something that is still lacking from the UI. So hopefully with this, addition, it's not only clear what your rewards are going to be, but it's clear about what you need to do to upgrade to the next reward in that process. Because right now with Mythic Plus, you just mouse over it and you're like, oh, hey, look, I've run 6 10s and 2 7s. So I need to run 2 more 10s in order to actually make this happen, even though right now it looks like my vault's full because I've run 8 Mythic Plus, right? And it's just really easy to tell what that's going to be. So they don't have that right now for that one row, that outdoor world row. And so if it's a Journeys tab that they're putting in and lets you actually look at things like Delves and your Great Vault reward progress as far as Prey and everything else, that would be super helpful for differentiating how you're going to get the better reward, or what you have left to do to get the better reward. So I'm hopeful for this Journeys tab.
Yeah, I think we need it, right? Especially with Prey coming in as a whole other kind of branch off of the system. It's already pretty crowded as it is in that, in that UI that we have now. And man, I can't tell you with the amount of characters that I've been running delves on for most of this expansion, how many times I've been like, wait, how many did I do
Yep.
on this character? How many do I still have to do? Well, I have this many keys left, so that must mean this, or like what's bountiful today, whatever. And because when you mouse over the row, it's just like, well, you have 3 rewards
But
because
that
you
could be
did all
theater
these
troupe.
world events to
Yep.
do. You got to do the world
Yep.
events to get the keys. So yeah, it's been messy. It's needed an upgrade to begin with, and then we're putting in Prey, and we don't really quite know the shape yet of how Prey is going to look with like what you have to do to get vault rewards, and then how they scale up, and how much of it you have to do to get like a heroic vault reward, or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
However high it's going to go, which they were saying hero, but that could change. So that I think finding a better way to direct players in that realm is great. I think it's necessary because it's already bad, and then we're adding a whole new system into it. So I haven't really seen what this looks like yet. I think this is in this alpha build, but that didn't even cross my mind to look at when I was in there earlier this week. So, good to know they got an eye on it. It's something that we've, kind of complained about on the show throughout War Within. I mean, I've enjoyed delves. I think they're a great addition to the game, and I have fun with them. But trying to track individual tunes' progress on what I'm doing for the week. I mean, the whole game revolves around the weekly vault, really.
Yeah.
Whether we like it or not, it just does. And just more clear communication about what should you consider doing on this character? What have you done yet this week? What have you not done? What is still out there to do? These kinds of things are really important, especially, you make it easier to play more characters, then it's more things that people forget what they were in the middle of on whatever character when they had to log off,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
I think finding better ways to communicate that is essential as they want to keep growing this space in WoW and really kind of pushing this solo play or small group play, no real defined group size kind of stuff. That's I think they need it. So we'll see what this looks like, and hopefully it starts ticking some of those boxes.
Yeah, I hope so. Now, new waves of alpha are happening regularly as far as more people getting invited in. And so one of the notes I wanted to highlight here from this is that with each phase of alpha, we encourage players to make a new template character and avoid using their previous characters, as they could potentially be in a broken state. After making a new template character, make sure to talk to Questzur Torin, and he will prepare you for any available content. So just a reminder to the folks out there who are getting alpha and who will eventually get into alpha and eventually get into beta and et cetera, this is something, don't just stick with the one character. Make a new template character with all the new builds that come out and new phases that we enter, because that will really make sure you're not essentially operating in a broken state, which happens a lot inside alpha builds. So keep that in mind. Okay.
I have
right.
definitely not
Sure.
followed this advice sometimes
Oh my
in various
God.
alpha beta tests, and it does not go well.
No,
So
it doesn't. Yeah.
yeah, it's just like once the phase ends, just delete that character or whatever, and just move on, make a new character, because otherwise stuff gets stuck or weird or doesn't work right, and you just end up wasting your own time.
Yeah.
These are test characters. Don't get attached to them. Don't think, oh, well, I'm just going to see what happens. Probably nothing good's going to happen. So just make a new one.
Yeah.
Make a new template and go.
Yeah. As far as what's available in alpha, there's a lot of things available, but something I wanted to highlight here is that you can speak with Nexus Lord Donjon Raid the 9th in Silvermoon City, Orgrimmar, or Stormwind to be summoned to a raid encounter, which is the Beleren Child of Alar. There is also the Windrunner Spire, Murder Row, and March on Quel'Danas dungeons that are out there for you to hop into and check out. They are going to remove the Beleren Child of Alar encounter in a future alpha build. So just keep in mind, this is like a limited opportunity to test this. And you're going to be testing it with the boss timelines and class updates and items and boss alerts. Those are all going to happen in and be added in over time. So just keep that in mind when these boss tests come out. It's helpful to hop in and check those out. So I want to be sure that was in there as well. There's a stat squish coming starting in public alpha 1, which is not yet. There is going to be stat squish numbers. So, like in previous squishes, they're reducing the values across the board, including players and creature health, damage, healing, item level, and stats on items. This squish will not affect player character levels, so just keep that in mind. It's not a level squish. For players logging into public alpha, the new character templates will reflect the expected power levels of an 80 to 90 character. Known issues: items previews in the quest rewards pane can show pre-squished item levels. This is just a display issue. The item levels are actually correct when you get the items themselves. So just keep that in mind. Like a lot of those tooltips and panels are not going to be updated right away, but you will be able to feel the squish and see what that feels like, which should feel pretty much the same as you currently feel power level wise, just with lower numbers. So yes, keep that in mind. That is something we're getting with Midnight, is a stat squish.
Yeah, it's time. I think once players start getting over like 20 million health and, we're doing like billions of damage on AoE pulls, it's like, yeah, we got to peel the numbers back. This does make it really weird right now, though, because this is in, if you make a template character, you're squished, you're level 80, but your numbers are way lower, and nothing makes any sense right now because I can't copy my character over from live. The test character I have is like item level 80 or something. I don't know. It was something ridiculously low like that compared to the 716 my main is at. So I don't know how that compares. So it's really hard to judge like what anything feels like because I have there's no baseline, right? If I could copy my own character over, then I would go, okay, well, this feels about the same, or this is about what I would expect for doing some intro questing into a new expansion, or this is better or worse. I have no idea what to expect from the character that I'm playing or the content that I'm playing, and it's a little hard to gauge. So yeah, but all the numbers are going to be hugely different. I wasn't expecting anything less. It is a little weird having it happen like smack in the middle of a trilogy, but it really doesn't matter, and we'll all be used to it 3-4 weeks into the new expansion, and then in another year or two we'll be going, wait, when did they do the last squish? Was it at the end of War Within, or was it before that, or was it, I don't remember. That's just, they'll get most of it right. Some of it'll be weird. They'll fix it, and then we just got to adjust our brains to the new reality of like, what is good damage? What is bad damage? What is, I'm taking a lot of damage, right? Like what numbers are high now? That's the adjustment we'll need to make.
Yeah. Okay, so the next little cherry picked piece of info I want to talk about here is items, particularly around class sets. There's a couple of notes they put in here with dev notes. So they say fully collecting a class's set's appearance now unlocks all lower difficulty variants. For example, collecting all the mythic appearances will automatically unlock the heroic, normal, and raid finder variants, while unlocking heroic would only unlock normal and raid finder, etc. Eligible sets will still be marked as such in the set collection UI. This change is retroactive to all legacy content. Items will no longer change their approved appearance when upgraded. And so that's an important note, which means that when you upgrade your normal boots using hero crests, they will not become hero appearance boots. You won't get that appearance anymore. But if you collect the entire hero appearance or normal appearance, if you collect the whole normal appearance, you'll get the raid finder appearance as well. That's just something you get as part of that. If you collect hero, you'll get normal and raid finder as part of that. And mythic, you get the other three as well as that as well. So just keeping that in mind. There's no way to like force yourself to get hero track appearances by upgrading normal pieces to it. You need to upgrade hero pieces if you're trying to accomplish that, which you can do. So developer note on this is, while we feel the Catalyst has been largely successful in expanding access to powerful seasonal set bonuses, it has also generated friction in its dual use as primary source of class set appearances for many players. This friction has been further exacerbated by loot rule restrictions in situations such as participating in LFR raiding. In conjunction with this, we want to better preserve the value and identity of item art from difficult content. So they're basically saying, hey, if you want to put together get all of the class sets, you need to be doing content that will get you mythic quality gear that you can catalyze, that will then allow you to have the full set, which will then unlock all of the previous appearances. If you're not doing that content, if you're only doing heroic content, then you'll only be able to get the heroic version of that and the lesser ones below it, which means you'll collect those much faster. But it stops people from getting mythic appearances who are just wearing hero gear that they've pushed a couple of Gilded Crests into. That is what they're trying to, make sure that's a little bit more special, which I don't hate. I actually overall for this idea think that this is a good change. I think I'm going to get a lot of appearances because I have a lot of sets where like I have the full heroic or I have the full mythic, but I didn't get all the LFR or whatever. So there's a lot, like I expect the server load will be quite high as people log in and it tries to catalog all of the set appearances that people now have when this change happens. But yeah, I think in general, I like this change. I like where they're headed with it, and I think it's going to be a neat thing that's fun for players to do. And I also like not having to game the Catalyst system to try and get particular appearances.
Yeah, I think like LFR appearances have just been pretty much like off the table.
Yeah.
Unless it gets very late in the season and there's some catch-up mechanic that has an easily obtainable selection of veteran gear, and then they haven't done this in a while, but they used to just like unlock the Catalyst or whatever, right? And then you can just like dump veteran gear. Now you gotta wait till the season's over, and the only like way to get veteran gear I think right now is from Undercoin, and you don't get a ton of Undercoin on a regular basis without a fair bit of effort, so like that wouldn't be a good option anyway. So if that stuff was going to kind of carry forward, looking at it that way, this change to collect the lower difficulty appearances is fantastic. I think that, they identify really the problem that we've run into with the Catalyst lately, where early in the season, yes, it's mega important to have your charges, whatever, get your stuff upgraded or catalyzed, I should say, so that you can activate 4 pieces. That's massively important when a season starts, right?
Yeah.
After that, you are pretty much like you're maybe like holding a charge in reserve in case you get that piece, or you get, I got a myth helm with a tertiary on it, so I want to catalyze that to replace it. You're holding it for these very specific cases, and then you're just waiting until you can, rip the Band-Aid off and use it for transmog, right? Like I've been doing that most of this expansion. I have like stuff in my bank that's waiting to be catalyzed so that I can get the appearances. And you're watching, do we get a charge this week or is it next week or whatever? It just feels weird. And so I think they're spot on with like the reasons why that they want to do this. I would say that the items no longer changing their appearances when upgraded would be awful were it not for the next bullet point on the list, because that wouldn't be flexible enough, I don't think. But they are making another change related to the Catalyst that will ease up all that pressure about what am I doing with my charges, and I'm getting loot from these sources, and what do I need for Mog, and how do I want to actually use my Catalyst charges for power, but then also end up with the Mog by the end of the season, or at a point in the season where I can actually wear it and have it be cool, instead of just like, hey, I finally finished last season's set because now the Catalyst is unlocked.
Yeah, so the next point in this is that acquiring a class 4 set bonus, just the 4 set, not getting 5 pieces, not getting the whole set, just acquiring the 4 set bonus, now unlocks a character-specific feat of strength that will enable the Catalyst charges to drop from raid bosses, Mythic Plus, Bountiful Delves, and rated PvP on that character for the remainder of the season. The dev note on this is the decision to spend Catalyst charges can be difficult early in a season as players anticipate looting more powerful armor in the same slot in the near future. For example, catalyzing a veteran or champion helm may feel like a mistake, knowing that a hero helm could be right around the corner or in your next Mythic Plus dungeon. If a player decides to spend that charge and then receives the hero helm, it may sit in their bags for up to 2 weeks before it can be effectively equipped. This change could empower players to chase their seasonal class their seasonal class set bonuses early on without reservation, with the knowledge that additional Catalyst charges will likely be farmable for them just several weeks into a season. In addition, armor pieces with desirable secondary stats in non-set slots, such as belts, boots, should feel like a more viable option earlier in the season. I love this change. This is a wonderful change. This, because as someone who literally, like, my best in slot belt is a catalyzed belt. Can I spend a catalyst charge on a belt right now? No, I can't. Why? Because they've gone into pieces to make mythic tier, because I need mythic tier pieces. But I would have earned so many catalyst charges by now with the amount of mythic plus that I've been doing and rating that I've been doing, that I would have easily been able to do my belt and just had a bunch of catalyst charges left over. And it would have felt great. I'd be in a really great position as far as like, yeah, I have catalyst charges. I can catalyze whatever I want. If I get a new belt, or if I want to upgrade from a heroic one to a mythic one, or whatever it is I'm doing, I can just catalyze it freely without worrying about this very limited restricted resource. And they hit the nail right on the head with, hey, early on, you may have a veteran or champion piece that drops that you normally would be like, yeah, let's catalyze this right away. Let's get that set bonus going. But you're like, oh, but like, it's Sunday and vault happens on Tuesday. I don't know what's going to come out of the vault. I guess I'll wait. So I guess I'll just put this in my bank. I'll put this piece of gear that is an upgrade for me and I should want to catalyze and use right away and be excited about. I'll put it on a shelf somewhere for a couple of days to see what comes out of that vault. And then it becomes Tuesday and there isn't that piece out of the vault. And you're like, well, should I catalyze this, or should I run my 8 mythic plus first just to see if I get a hero piece out of those 8 mythic plus? Well, now it's Thursday and you're like, well, should I wait till next week before I catalyze? Like, oh my God, just remove that pressure of limited resource with this. Let us catalyze. And this is a great way to do it. Of the moment you get your 4-piece, you get the feat of strength. That 4-piece could be, you could have a veteran piece with a mythic piece and a hero piece and a champion piece, but it makes up your 4-piece. You now can earn catalyst charges. That's wonderful. I love it. Great change. Huge load off the mind. Very happy.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely felt that pressure early season where it's like, well, I could activate 4-piece if I use a catalyst charge on this really bad item. This item I know I'm going to replace, a veteran item or whatever. Like, I know I'm going to get a hero helm out of doing plus 10s or whatever at some point. It's inevitable. So, but 4-piece is like really good. So I don't know if it's worth it. But I got to save the catalyst charge because whatever. Now you kind of don't have to. You want to get your 4-piece just assembled and activated. Now you have your feat of strength. Now you're getting catalyst charges from doing other content. I mean, they don't give like an indicator of, how quickly it's going to drop or whatever, like what the kind of the, like it says it enables them to drop, but we don't know, is it 50-50? Is it guaranteed? Is there, some kind of bad luck protection? We don't know the details on how frequently you get them, but it takes all that pressure and decision making away. And then once you're kind of comfortable, if you got, your full thing set up, you got hero 4 set or myth 4 set, or, you got some mix and match pieces, but you're happy at the state of the upgrade track you have your items on, then you earn these. And now you just grabbing stuff for Mog and you can Mog it and you don't have to think about it. You have to keep that charge in reserve in case that item shows up on Tuesday. Yeah, it's really good. I think like overall the change is a bummer for people who are playing just more in that like hero track level of rewards that we're able to unlock the mythic upgrades. Like you're not going to be able to do that anymore. And that's kind of a bummer. That's the one big downside here. But I think all the upsides are substantial. These are really good changes to the way that we're using Catalyst in practice, right? Catalyst came in 2021. And it's changed a bit here and there since then. I think over the course of the last expansion, it's really settled into like a particular sort of routine where, you are banking that charge because you're waiting for Vault and you're hoping that you get, this higher track reward. And then you use that catalyst charge you had, and now you can use that item, or you're in a spot where you had to use all your catalyst charges to activate your bonus because you did have the stuff that you wanted, and now you're getting items that you're waiting on.
Yep.
And then, basically you're holding all your Mog until very late in the season because you're waiting for the catalyst charges to come off when the season rolls over or whatever. So just doing away with all of that is great. And, of course they had to throw a downside in there. They couldn't just not have a knife to twist, but overall, I think it's going to be a lot better. And even if you're not getting those myth sets, you are now not in the spot where you're like, well, I have to do LFR and roll against, everybody else in the instance for these appearances, and I never win them, and then I have to do more LFR, and it's the only way I'm getting these appearances. Like, you just don't have to do that anymore. Complete any other set, and then you unlock those appearances, so you have some more flexibility that way. So yeah, a couple really big wins here, I think.
I agree. Okay, the last thing we're going to mention on today's episode is like we're I wouldn't even say dipping our toe into the add-on conversation, but there is a post that came out that was based off of day one feedback on alpha for add-ons, and this is from Blizz that says, immediately in the first day of testing, we've seen feedback on how currently there's a complete lockdown on the ability for add-ons to parse chat and add-on comms channels while in instances. We're seeing it break add-ons that support loot councils, break timers, and other benign communication, sharing raid notes for like Mythic Plus Keystone information. We agree that this is starting out excessively broad, and we're going to make changes to only apply the new logic while there is an active raid encounter or Mythic Plus run underway. Our goal will be to make it so that these tools that share information that facilitate sharing information before or after combat won't be impacted. And so the important note for this to me is that they agree that this is like broad as far as that it's excessively broad is the term they actually use in how they're starting out. And the reason why this is important to me, and this, I don't want to get into the longer conversation, but my hope is that what we are seeing add-on wise and what we are seeing restriction wise on the UI is their wish list for where they are 6 or 7 years from now, as far as restrictions go. That they put in all of the restrictions that they want to have in place eventually someday. And they did this because it's much easier to alleviate little rules here and there and allow things to happen than it is to basically launch with or go into this alpha with nothing being restricted and then just slowly claw things away from creators. And so my hope is what we are seeing right now in add-ons and this overall conversation about add-ons is Blizzard put out there, this is where the restrictions are going to be 10 years from now or 6 years from now or whatever it is down the line. And what we're going to do is that we recognize this breaks everyone's add-ons, and we are going to look at the cases where we know we have gaps. There isn't something in Blizzard UI that supports this. We think this is critically important, and we're going to open up doorways for add-ons to function in the ways that need to be fulfilled in those things from our restrictions that we can then close at a much later date once we have something in place ourselves that is going to take care of this. So that's my hope on what we're seeing and why they even use the excessively broad term, like I said, that this is just them blanketing with the harshest rules of what's going to happen down the line and their wish list items, and they openly recognize, hey, we don't have anything in place for like sharing information like this or doing things like this with this add-on, and we're not going to be ready for midnight for this to happen, so we're going to open up some pathways to make sure these add-ons still function. Because we're seeing posts from a lot of creators that are like essentially saying we've given up on designing something for midnight and we're not even going to support it because if there's no point in us doing this with the restrictions that Blizzard's putting in place. So my hope is those pain points are being identified by them and they are going to be essentially allowing stuff to function properly going forward. So that's what I'm hoping for with what we see out of this post.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting that like the first day of alpha, they're already, flexing on some things at least. I don't think Blizzard's timeline is going to be anywhere near, several years, many years. But, they are doing this way faster than I think what they set us up for. That video that they put out about clawing back, add-on functionality came out like a few months ago. It was in the springtime, I feel like. And the way Ian talked about it, it sounded like it would be a few years before these things kicked in. And instead, it ended up being a couple months later, essentially, right? Like, there's no way it's been more than 6 months since that video came out.
Yeah.
And, we're seeing add-on authors just like, we're not going to do a midnight version because we, like the Weak Auras crew put out a big post about how, like, they could turn it into essentially a painter's kit but they don't. That's not what they want weak auras to be, so they don't want to do it anymore. And yeah, I think in order for Blizzard to get to where they need to or where they want to, maybe a little bit of both, want and need to be with the way the game functions at a an out of the box level and the way that add-ons work, I do think that they need to go take a super broad approach, take like a almost like a scorched earth kind of policy and start over. And then, because that's easier than going, well, we don't like this, and we're going to tamp down on this call, and we're going to not let you do this. And then, that's extremely frustrating, and I don't think that gets you to the desired end result as fast as sort of, it's an alpha test. Today is day 4 of alpha. This is not a finished product, and none of this is settled. So it's like, this is probably the way to, if you want to get to a world where you're not letting add-ons pull combat data in real time and communicate it to players, and you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself to have UI options that do the jobs that all of these things have been doing.
Yeah.
And I just didn't get the impression that they were ready to do that on this kind of timeline. And so I was actually pretty surprised. I knew some stuff was going to change, obviously, and they've been continuing to make changes to baseline functionality. But I just felt like this is a super accelerated timeline for what we were expecting. And I do think it's going to be a lot of back and forth. I mean, I will say there are a lot of players who just want that painter's kit. And if the WeakAuras guys aren't going to be the authors that provide that, then somebody else probably will. I did see some stuff from like from bigwigs about like using stuff with the new integrated boss timeline and having like customizability around that. I mean, I don't think that it's going to be the case that all of the stuff is going to totally go away forever. But it might require some kind of changing of the guard, the way that authors did it before. If they don't want to flex and release add-ons that fit into sort of Blizzard's vision of what add-ons do, then they're not going to, but probably somebody else will. That's sort of been that's always how it's been with WoW add-ons from day one. There's stuff that Blizzard doesn't want an add-on doing, and so an add-on goes away. And then somebody else makes a new add-on that does something similar but in a different way, and they kind of carry the torch. So, yeah, it's tough. It's a tough period right now because it's sort of a growing pain that needs to happen. And it's going to be more severe, I think, for some people than others at the outset. I do think Blizzard would be smart to flex on some stuff and maybe even, roll back on some of that stuff they want to do or they feel like they need to do, like widen the timeline. Because if their stuff isn't in place and ready to go and perfect, it's not going to be acceptable to a lot of players. They have to make it exactly what people want, or else what's the alternative, right? I just don't. That's kind of the way I'm looking at it. Like, I almost don't even get why even start doing some of the big restrictions if you don't have a robust suite of stuff in place in the baseline
Sure.
UI. Like, give people the alternative first and have proof of concept. Like, this is what we are doing. This is how we are developing this. This is how we're solving this problem. Try it. Let us know what you think. Let us know what it's lacking, right? Maybe the thought is not enough people will try it for us to get enough of the right kinds of feedback if we don't just slam the door on the combat add-ons. So it's a tough situation. I think, we've seen that arms race just escalate over the years between encounter design and add-on design. An arms race that Blizzard at one point in time, it tried to act like didn't exist. They refused to acknowledge the fact that they would develop fights knowing that people were going to need external boss mods and WeakAuras to solve them. They eventually sort of recanted on that, went, well, yeah, like obviously that's what we were doing. But for a while, they tried to act like that's not what they were doing. I want to live in a world where you don't need a multi-tiered WeakAuras suite in order to navigate a mythic boss and have your team kill it. I don't want to play fights like that. So I'm hoping they can take more of a scalpel to this eventually and like, okay, these specific things are things that add-ons are not going to do. You're going to have broad customization options for your add-on, so your UI can look like whatever you want it to look like and track whatever you want it to track about your character, right? Not about an encounter, maybe. Okay, cool. And then we're going to design encounters that you can look at the screen and the fight presents you the information that you need to coordinate a response to it. That's the game that I want to play. So I'm hoping that they can achieve that with these changes. But like in the meantime, if we just go into, first tier Midnight and Weak Auras doesn't exist in any form as we've known it over the last many years. And, I don't know, DBM bigwigs, maybe these other things are just sort of like reskinning what the game is already presenting to you, and the fights don't change significantly, then how do we even approach doing them? Like, we need more than just simple boss timers in many cases with the way the direction fights have been going in recent years. So that's sort of my concern. Like, I think it's going to work out eventually. I just don't understand why Blizzard was like, let's put this amount of pressure on ourselves to have our baseline built-in tools to be as good as they need to be. I don't think they're going to be as good as they need to be in 4 or 5 or 6 months. So I could be wrong. Maybe they'll prove me wrong, but I just feel like there could have been a world where they had 2 different lanes for this, but instead maybe they just figured, listen, if we give people the option to use ours or use the add-ons, we have way too much data going back. We made all these improvements to the baseline UI that people still did with add-ons anyway. We're not going to get where we need to go if we don't just block all of these connections and just kill these add-ons outright. They might not be wrong about that, but man, I just feel like it's so much. It's so much pressure to get it right. It has to be right. People expect it to be at a certain level because that's the level they've had it at. They've been able to make it at how they wanted it for all this time.
Yep. And
to take it away and not go, well, here's the new thing that you can use, but it doesn't do what the other thing did. Like, I get why it's scary to so many players and why it's been the topic of conversation all week.
Yeah. And like I said, I don't want to rabbit hole this too far, because we're going to have tons and tons and tons and tons of time to talk about this topic, because it's going to be...
hopefully a lot of it changes over the next few months too.
It's going to, like 100% it's going to change. There is zero chance there aren't more updates to UI and what's happening with add-ons going forward. And the case in point to that, to me, is just right off the bat, accessibility in the game is something that WeakAura has offered that Blizzard has not been able to offer. The literal, hey, you have an accessibility need. You need to be able to customize the game to be able to play it a certain way, or get alerts a certain way, or get communication happening with your team a certain way. That's something that WeakAura has provided that Blizzard has not provided. So there 100% will need to be, because I cannot see a world in which World of Warcraft takes giant leaps backwards in accessibility to players. That makes zero sense in what they're doing. So yeah, I foresee changes coming. We're going to have more conversations about it. We'll see what's going on in future weeks. All right. With that, I'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons and thank them for all that they contribute to the show. They contribute a ton to our show and help us to improve on the content we create. Today, I'm giving a special shout out to Arajian, Anthony, Bradley, Bruce, Chris, James, Garrett, Kapawi, and Shorel, as well as our newest patron, Tim. Thank you so much for hopping in there and supporting the show. You can support our show by going over to the patreon.com/Starting Zone. That's patreon.com/the Starting Zone, and hop in there and support the show if you're up for helping us cover the expenses of hosting things and running things and posting things and all of that. We appreciate it very much. Thank you to all of our past and present patrons, and here's to much more episodes ahead.
Absolutely. Thank you, patrons. We appreciate all your support over the many years of covering this game, and welcome aboard, Tim. Thank you for chipping in and supporting what we do around here. It means a lot, and it helps us keep the show on track, keep episodes coming out to you, keep the archives online. So thank you. And hey, if you like today's episode, thank a patron.
Yeah, exactly. Well, a great way to reach out to the show is by heading over to thestartingzone.com, the official email address for The Starting Zone. You can leave us your feedback or ask a question. You can also reach us at thestartingzone at gmail.com, like I said, or over thestartingzone.bsky.social, at The Starting Zone, or thestartingzone.com/Discord. That's going to wrap up episode 704 of The Starting Zone. If you want to check out show notes, you can go to our website, thestartingzone.com, the official website for the Starting Zone podcast. We got show notes there, including links to the articles and things we talked about. There's going to be a lot of links in this show, so just keep that in mind. And if you want to get your hands on some TSE gear, you can go to thestartingzone.dashery.com, and you can get designs on shirts and mugs and stickers and stuff like that. And Jason, where can folks find you on the internet?
You can find me on socials over on Twitter at Shieldwald or at Blue Sky at jlucas.bsky.social. I check both sites regularly, but mostly just post stuff to Blue Sky, so come say hi in either one. You can find video channels on twitch.tv/Shieldwald and youtube.com/Shieldwald. Streams are usually Tuesday, Wednesday, and sometimes Sunday, 7:30 Eastern. Probably throw in some extra alpha streams and stuff when I have time, just to show some stuff off, or maybe, check some stuff out, let people ask questions or whatever. I was doing some YouTube streams, and then a new drop campaign started. So probably just Twitch streams for now. There's a little baby pit lord pet you can get from watching WoW streams at the moment on Twitch. So I will just be there, because if you're watching WoW streams, you should be getting your pet. It's pretty cool. So yeah, come check out the video channels too.
Yeah, there was a promotion a while back for a SteelSeries mouse that got you that same or a very similar pit lord pet. So this is another way to get that without having to buy a mouse to get it. So that's kind of neat for people that are out there trying to do that. If you want to get your reach out to me, you can reach out to me on Blue Sky at spencerhd.bsky.social, or on Twitter at Spencer_Downey, or you can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/SpencerHD, or youtube.com/@SpencerHD. And with that, for Jason and myself, we want to say thanks for listening, and jobs done.